Hello everyone, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. Let's talk about making pot pies because it's really super easy. And in my case, I'm always using whatever leftover meat is available. My personal favorite is any kind of red meat, whether it be venison, elk, or beef. And in that case, it's usually based off of a roast. If I baked up a roast, then I'll take some of that leftover meat and then use that to add to my pot pie. Now, I will say that beef pot pie, the most recent one I made, was probably the best red meat pot pie I have made ever. I don't remember for sure, but I know that one was my best. But here's my problem for people who want written recipes on this is that I don't make it the same way twice, ever. I'm always experimenting and trying different things, but a lot of times it's just like throwing stuff together, whatever vegetables I have on hand, whatever meat I have on hand, however much I feel like throwing in there. Typically what you're wanting is for the filling to end up being approximately 4 to 6 cups. And so sometimes I'm using dried goods, sometimes I'm using kind of fresh goods or canned goods. Usually it's dried. So in fact, except for the meat that I put in there, which was from the roast I had baked a couple nights prior, all the vegetables I used in there were all dried. All of them were dried, dehydrated. So mushrooms, zucchini, green beans, they all turned out great. Carrots, most of that from, not the mushrooms, but most of that stuff from my garden. And then if you're looking at, like mostly for me, when I'm looking at pot pies, I'm typically thinking of more of a creamy type pot pie. Now, I don't know if some people make theirs more like just using broth and thickening it up, but I'm always looking at a milk-based product. But yeah, I'll make chicken, I'll make turkey pot pies. But anyway, so I have my basic pie crust. Now, what I did link to in the description box down below was the pie crust recipe I finally developed that is gluten-free for those who need to be gluten-free. So I linked to that. But I also linked to the video I did a good number of years ago. I think it was 7 years ago or 8 years ago on making a venison pot pie. And I think in that one, I didn't go watch it. I think I show making the pie crust, but and so it's just basic. But even that can change depending on the flours I'm using. Sometimes I'm using all unbleached white flour. Sometimes I'm using whole grain flours, and sometimes I'm using a blend of the two. This last time I used a blend of the two. Now here was a little thing I tried for the first time was I took the fat, that had solidified and floated to the top in the roast after, of course, I stuck it in the fridge. And I wouldn't have had enough to use that as all of my shortening replacement, but I used it as a partial shortening replacement. So I used a mix of that. So the beef fat, so it had the beefy flavor in it, butter, and organic palm shortening I get from Azure Standard. Oh, it was so good. It was so good to have that, just a little more of that beef flavor into the pie crust itself. It was really, really good. And then for the filling, what you're looking at is approximately 2 cups of your liquid. So if you're vegan or you have to be dairy-free, you can use whatever your favorite nut milk is or learn how to make your own nut milk and figure out what your favorite is from there. But I always start with approximately 2 cups of milk or 2 cups of water that then I add a powdered milk or milk, some kind of dairy to it. And then about a 1/4 cup of flour, and you want to cook that so it thickens up. And what I did in this case with the dried vegetables is I cooked them first in water with a little bit of dehydrated beef broth that I dehydrated myself, thrown in there for added flavor. And I cooked that, until they were fully softened, fully rehydrated, and even just didn't even strain them out since I had that nice beef flavor and added that in. Your milk can even be half and half. A lot of times I'll use half and half. This time I used just regular whole milk, and I added a couple scoopfuls of my heavy cream powder. Okay. That one is the Hoosier Hill, but Anthony's also has, I haven't looked yet to see if Azure Standard has come out with a heavy cream powder yet, but Anthony's, I like the way they package theirs better. And it seems like they have, if I remember correctly, a better price. But Anthony's is a great place to buy herbs. They have a lot of organic herbs, and then they have a lot of dairy powders that are pretty good quality, made in the US. So anyway, I just added a heavy cream powder to just to make it richer. And like I said, I cooked all the vegetables. I see, what all did I add? Zucchini, carrots, green beans. I didn't throw peas in. I did put in some of the freeze-dried corn I get from Mother Earth Products. Every now and then I'll get their freeze-dried sweet corn because sometimes it's good just a snack on it. Let's see. The carrots are from the garden. The beans were from the garden. What else did I put in there? Onions, garlic, obviously. I think I already said. A little salt, a little pepper. I typically will add some homegrown thyme that I dehydrated and sage, again, from the garden that I dehydrated. I don't measure them. I just kind of look at it in my hand and go, that looks good, and throw it in there. So I can't give you exact measurements, but say about a teaspoon. But one thing I did different to this pot pie that I don't usually do is I added about a teaspoon or so, because again, I didn't measure it. I just looked at it in my hand and thought, that looks good. And I used paprika. Maybe that was part of the thing that kind of took that pie over the top, was the paprika in it this time. But at any rate, it was so good. And then the heavy cream powder, it was nice and rich, and it was one of my best. But the thing is, pot pies are so simple, and it's really all about tailoring the ingredients to suit you and your family's needs, which is why a lot of times I'll show people how to do stuff, but I don't give a lot of exact ingredients because it's all going to be a matter of taste. Everybody's going to be different. The type of meat you used. Oh, and of course, obviously, I chopped up the remaining beef roast and threw that in there, and there was actually quite a bit of it, so it made it very meaty. I think that was the other thing that made it super good. It was really meaty, and I loved it. I've only had one piece of it, but it was so good. So I mentioned the fact that you can make it vegan by leaving out the meat, just doing veggies, maybe use some lentils, and then using like a non-dairy milk replacement, such as any kind of nut milk, whatever your favorite kind is. I wouldn't recommend coconut milk in this case, but almond milk, pecan cashew milk, Brazil nut milk, Brazil nut and hazelnut. Oh, then the other thing I wanted to mention is another type of pot pie you can make. Instead of, and I always do a 2-crust pie when I'm making a regular pot pie. I love having the top and bottom crust. But if I'm making a biscuit pot pie, which is, I'll do this with turkey or with chicken, is I don't use a pie pan in that case. I'll use like a casserole dish, and I'll put the filling just in the bottom, and then I'll make a biscuit topping to go. So I make the filling pretty much the same, but then I'll just make biscuits, but I make them a little wetter than I normally would. So I would add a little more milk to that as I'm making it. And then just kind of drop that on top and try to, in little bits until I've got the whole top of the filling covered, and then bake it open so that it can brown on top as well. So I don't cover it. So uncovered. The thing about pot pie is, again, everybody wants a lot of people want specific written recipes, when it's really about learning how to be creative and just make something up for yourself. It's like the whole idea of using dairy powders. Now, another video I linked in the description box is about using dairy powders. This is in the most recent one I did, and under that video, I actually typed up a recipe for a rich white sauce that you can make using just your dairy powder. So like your whole milk powder, your heavy cream powder. I can't remember if I used butter powder in that as well, because the heavy cream's already got a lot of butter in it. But yeah, I give instructions on how you can just use just your dairy powders for making a nice rich white sauce that can work as a base for your Alfredo, your pot pies, your biscuits and gravy, anything where you're going to have a white sauce, white gravy. It's super easy, super easy. And when you got all those dairy powders on hand, knowing how to use them is important. Sometimes I want to keep the fresh milk that we get, the organic fresh milk, because we don't have access to like raw milk around here. There are people that have it, but they're very unreliable sources. So we buy organic whole milk wherever we can get it. Sometimes it's local. Sometimes we did actually go to Costco last week, and it's a rare. I don't think I've actually been into a physical Costco in years. I stocked up on a whole bunch of their organic milk in the cartons, and then we freeze it. But I still want that to last. So a lot of times for my gravies and sauces, I will use my dairy powders instead of using the whole milk, so that I can keep that fresh. I want people to feel that it's really not hard. For one, for a lot of people, just learning how to make a good pie crust might be the difficult part, but the filling is super easy. It's super easy. And making a white sauce that you can use for anything is also super easy. Whether you use fresh dairy or you use dairy replacements or you use dairy powders, it's very, very easy. And then whatever herbs, meats, vegetables. Oh, I also like to add dried potatoes to that. And those are the ones I like to get from Mother Earth Products because I like the size of theirs. They're dehydrated potatoes. They're like perfect, especially for pot pie. I like throwing those in there. So I use those as well. Now I have some of the potatoes I dehydrated myself, but the ones I chunked up, I'm not doing that again. They're too big. So if I dry them again, I'm going to cut them smaller like the way Mother Earth Products does. The sliced potatoes have been pretty good. But like I've said before, this year I'm looking at dry canning my potatoes. I've canned potatoes, and I really only like the potatoes I've canned in water for making potato salad. They're great for making potato salad, but you got to strain them, and it helps to kind of rinse them off a little bit. But at any rate, I'm really looking forward to dry canning my potatoes this year and giving that a try. I would have done it last year, but I didn't garden last year. So was there anything else I wanted to say about that? But yeah, the beef tallow, that it wasn't rendered down. It still had little bits of beef stuck to it and beef broth stuck to it. And I just threw it right into the pie crust as I was making it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I got this beef fat. I'll throw this in here too. Oh man, it was so good. I wonder how it would taste if I had all beef tallow for the fat in the pie crust. So again, biscuit, you can do the biscuit topping instead if you don't want to do pie crust or you just haven't quite figured out how to do a pie crust. It takes a little practice, but that was one of the things I learned how to do at a very young age because my mom didn't know how to do pie crust and I love pies. And so I basically taught myself, and I think I was 15 and been making pie crust ever since. So I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care and God bless. Love y'all.